What's going on, everybody? This is round 2 for Melissa and I. Melissa, before we get started, let's just do a really quick fingers crossed. Okay? We got this. All right, let's do this. We attempted to record over the weekend and the internet did internet things. And here we are, round 2. But this is going to be a really awesome conversation that I get to have with my friend Melissa. And you get to hear her story, her mission, and her message. For those of you just tuning in for the first time, what we like to do is have real, raw, genuine conversations with people who define resilience every day. And what we're going to do is do a bit of a deep dive with our personal stories and looking at what happened to us in our lives and how that gave us opportunities to define resilience and show up where we're at today. So Melissa is going to share her story with us, and we're going to get into her specific mission, and you get to hear how she crushes life every day. And then how we wrap up these conversations, we're going to encourage you. We're going to encourage one another, and we're recognizing that all of us in some way, shape, or form, we're all hurting in some way. And that's what this platform, this podcast is about, is being raw, being real, and having conversations with one another in hopes that we can inspire one another, inspire you, and ultimately we can just be healthier than yesterday. So Melissa, thanks for spending some time with me. The first question that I have for you, it's a major question. It's heavy. So take your time and talk about those significant moments in your life that brought you to where you're at right now. And like I said, it's heavy. It's a lot. I'm throwing a lot at you, but I know you can handle it because you shared a lot with me a few days ago. And I know that what you have to share can relate with someone in a way that's different than what I have to share about my personal story. So with that, I'm going to close my mouth and let you take this and run with it, my friend. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you. Hello. My name is Melissa Svancara. I'm I'll start with who I am, like right now. I'm 35, single mom, 3 kids, divorced thrice. I mean, you're probably thinking, oh my God, don't take advice from her. But anyways, I'm also in law school. I'm graduating next year. I have a limited license to practice in Idaho and Washington. And so I'm working at a couple law firms here during the summer. But why I'm in law school is a whole other story. I remember one of the first days of law school where all of us in our class were all super nervous during orientation. We get asked, why? What's your why? And I'm thinking, like, how do I even summarize this into a brief statement? Oh, and we were supposed to go up in front of in the courtroom and tell everyone, like in front of everyone. This is like a public speaking practice too. Mm-hmm. They just throw everything at you during the first week of law school. It's fun. But so I'm thinking for a couple of days and I'm stressing, like, I don't even, I'm writing things down. How do I summarize this into just a brief thing that I'm not going to be up there for, 45 minutes. And I can't remember exactly what I said, but I just remember saying, like, my attorneys in my case had such a huge impact on me. And I wanted them to know that I was there because of them and what my experiences with the legal system. But I wanted them to know that we're going into a profession where you can make such a huge impact in someone's life, so much that it's brought someone, a previous victim and survivor and client into law school. Um, but before law school, I was married, and in a really abusive marriage that changed my trajectory in life. But before all of that, I'm from Southern Idaho. My mom is Native American. I'm Shoshone Paiute of the Duck Valley Indian Reservation in Owyhee, Nevada. My dad, he's British, and my parents met when they were in high school. They had me pretty young, so it was challenging having young parents. They know that, I'm sure, but it was hard. Um, and while they tried their best, I wasn't equipped to handle some of the things that life was throwing at me, at a pretty young age. And when I was a teenager, I I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel like anyone even knew me or understood who I was or what I needed in life. And so I found that through other ways and through dating older guys or whatever it was. And I ended up with a guy who he sexually assaulted me at a young age and exploited me. And it was a moment in my life where I wasn't even able to come to terms with that until I was 34, because it was just that much of a traumatic experience that it was just. And when I explain this to other people, I explain it in that every time that memory sort of came up, it was like a steel door shutting on it. It was just my brain and body was not ready to process that at all. Um, and so I had experienced that early on. Then I struggled with eating disorder in high school, and so that was really tough. And then there was just things not going quite as planned. My dad and my parents wanted me to go in a different direction than I wanted to when I was in high school and wanting to pursue, a career. And that was really hard because we just kind of butt heads and just never really connected that, again. But when I got out of high school, I started seeing another guy, got married at 18. Do not do that. It was just like, I was probably rebelling a bit. I don't know. But it didn't work out, of course. And things are fine now. We get along still, but it was sort of that. And then after that, I ended up getting with another guy who was really controlling at first and obsessive. And then it started becoming physically abusive and just completely violent and life threatening, towards the end. But I had 3 kids by the time I was able to leave him, and 2 of them with him. And the moment I was able to report him was the most influential, most momentous thing that happened in my life. But it was also the scariest. I remember feeling just absolutely terrified. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't feel like I had anyone because I just kind of got shut out while I was with him. He isolated me from my family really early on. And of course, this is all stuff I learned after the fact, all these red flags. I didn't see any of this before. I'm a much different person now, but it had a lot of looking back at the choices that I made and how I felt then. Um, because in the midst of all of this abuse and violence in the marriage with him, I remember looking in the mirror and I didn't even know who I was. I would look and I'm like, what are you doing? I remember saying that to myself, like, what are you doing? Do something. And I couldn't. I couldn't. I didn't have the strength. I didn't I was broken, truly broken. Um and I felt very trapped, and that I truly believe that I was not going to live. I planned that my kids were not going to grow up with a mom because I just knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time, because the things that he did were just escalating over time. And um, towards the end, it was not even really him just hitting me anymore. It was strangulation and him cutting off my being able to breathe and me blacking out. It was stuff that was, looking back, extremely lethal, from like a legal standpoint, now that I know it from this point. But it was extremely dangerous. And um, but after leaving that, it wasn't the end of having to deal with him, me reporting him and all of this. After that, I had to file for protection order. I had very little experience with the court systems on how to even do this. And I was being told, okay, you need to file this like with this court. And I just did what I was told to do. Like when I go to the prosecutor's office, they're like, you need to get this filled out, be complete. I didn't have an attorney helping me or anyone else other than the victim advocate. And so it was incredibly stressful early on without an attorney. And so I show up to the first hearing, and he has an attorney in this area. It was a reputable law firm, or it still is. But she shows up, and I'm by myself. I'm not by myself. I have a victim advocate with the prosecutor's office and a victim advocate with a domestic violence shelter here. And I'm just like, oh my, what do I do? What do I say? I'm looking at the victim advocate. Like, I'm in a courtroom in front of the judge trying to stay safe from this guy, and I don't know what to do. And thankfully I got another attorney through an organization called the Northwest Justice Project, and they do pro bono work for domestic violence cases. And thankfully they took my case. But my attorney there, she was one of the first people that believed me. And that was a hard thing to sort of deal with as well. And after going through all of that, where some of my friends didn't even believe me, it was like, I don't even know how it was really hurtful, So I felt really even more so alone. And here I am having the opposing, like my ex, with an attorney who just went after me like I did something personal to her. And she's calling me a liar and trying to say that I'm just making all this up. And I'm thinking, I did not go through this for nothing. And I felt like I was losing in the case. And I just was shocked on how this was happening. And I had heard from other people like similar cases where things were happening in their situations. I'm thinking, oh, wow, I think I could probably do this. And so when I was working full time for law enforcement, I enrolled in my undergraduate degree, went to school full time and worked full time, graduated with honors, by the way, got my bachelor's degree, and then applied for law school. And here I am in my soon to be final year here. Next month, I start school. But law school has by far been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Like, the people I have met, I just am so grateful, like, to even be in this position. Coming from a family that Like, no one went to law school. Are you kidding? Like, no one went to law school. Um, it's just not a thing. And I felt like, it really, truly, if you can't beat them, join them. Um, and there's not enough attorneys that are willing to stand up for what's right. I feel like, or at least ones that understand the perspective of victims and survivors of not just sexual assault, but domestic violence. And a lot of this has to do with my kids, because my kids were so affected by this whole situation. Like, it's made a lasting impact on them in a lot of negative ways, but also in some positive, in that we're all a lot stronger, we're all a lot smarter. We know, we can sense when people are upset, and that's something that I feel like people that have experienced trauma, we have this trauma bond, we relate on this matter, because some people just don't understand what it's like to have real adversity in their life. And it's almost easier to sort of shut out. It is easier to shut out. I know that because I've done that for many years. But when I think of resiliency, I think of someone's past and how that has impacted them, and how they have turned that into something that they're going to work with. Okay, everyone's gone through something, and some people worse and some people not so bad. And I think a lot of our problem as human beings is that we do a lot of comparing, and we think, oh my gosh, what happened to her was so much worse, or what happened to him was so much worse. And then you sort of downplay your own experiences and be like, well, actually, I was 15. Like, that girl was 9. Like, that, I mean, it's not that bad. And so you just sort of like not pay attention so much to that. But I haven't always been this positive. I mean, there's definitely been a very long period in my life where I struggled with a lot of things, particularly alcohol. I used that to cope with what had happened. There was a lot of incidents, and it was not just one or two hospital visits. It was repeated, just violence. And so narrowing it down to just one incident and having just being triggered by one certain thing, I was getting triggered by, like, it seemed like everything was just so emotionally overwhelming. I wasn't able to go in public by myself because I was just terrified that I would run into him, or he would follow me, or he would end up in the place that I was, because he was doing that thing. And so I was scared. And it took a lot to get out of that mindset of being scared. It I think that might have been the hardest thing to overcome, because I felt that that sort of hate he had towards me, and like the desire to hurt me. And it was something I don't want anyone ever to have to experience. And so when I see other people going through these situations, I try to think of who's going to be their advocate, um, who's going to be even understanding what they go through. And so being in family law is what I want to do after law school. And because really our kids are our future. And if we're not breaking this cycle, because usually this trauma is generational, breaking this cycle with us or with our kids, we're just sort of letting this continue, and we're putting our own kids at risk because there's all these hurt people hurting people. You know, it's it's not just someone wakes up and is suddenly violent or is suddenly experiencing these things. It's generational typically. Sorry, I went on forever.
No sorry needed. How you doing right now?
Good. It's been nice
Good.
because I've had an opportunity to talk about this a lot. I and this was definitely not easy before. In my first year of law school, I decided I had committed to being a speaker at it's called the YWCA. There's one
Mm-hmm.
in Lewiston. It's a domestic violence shelter, and they do a lot of community work. But they had an event called the Inspiring Women's Brunch, and so they would have a keynote speaker and another speaker, and I committed to do that. And it was in my first semester of my first year of law school. First year of law school, they give you 6 classes, and it's terrifying, by the way. We had really intimidating professors too. And so I decided to do this speech right in the first year or first semester of law school. And that was, I'm so glad I did it, but it was so difficult to write that speech because it was the first time that I had actually talked about that whole situation as a whole, from the beginning to the end, or I guess to the present time. But it was the first time that I had actually explained it completely. And it was really emotional. It was very, very difficult. And of course, actually presenting it, I was crying basically the whole time. I hope they understood me. But that was the first time I actually spoke about it. And then sort of every time I've talked about it since with people and with my counselor, it's become easier and easier over time. The sexual abuse when I was 15, that was something that I had, it felt like I don't know, an epiphany. It was during summertime, and I was going to counseling, and my counselor recommended this book, The Body Keeps Score. Vander Kolk, I think. Excellent book. But there was this chapter on sexual assault or in sexual abuse victims. And sort of after my abusive, after leaving that, I just was like, okay, well, I'm a domestic violence survivor. I'm doing all these things for domestic violence and awareness and advocacy and trying to help victims. And I just sort of never realized, I was like, well, I'm not that. That's not me. Because I just didn't want to actually look at what happened. But when I was reading that book, it's talking about the body's reactions to trauma, and specifically when it came to sexual abuse and sexual assault. And after I was reading that, I went on a walk, and I didn't really connect it then when I was reading it. And I was just thinking when I was walking, and that memory started coming up, and that still door I was talking about, it didn't shut this time. And I actually looked at what had happened then when I was in high school, and it was it was really tough. I probably I had to call the YWCA and talk to a victim advocate just because I needed somebody to talk to. because I had to call my counselor a couple of times, and I was honestly that is a point in my life where I've really felt like in a mental health crisis, sort of realizing that, because it wasn't just realizing that that was abuse. It really was. And what he did was disgusting and all this. But it made sense why right after that I got an eating disorder. It made sense why I was confused on what love was, or what values people had. And I really devalued myself. And it was sort of just all, all overwhelming me at once. It made sense why I ended up with an abusive guy. It made sense why I ended up with an alcoholic guy. It all made sense at that moment. And it was extremely overwhelming. And I had already quit alcohol by that point, and I had no desire to drink, but it was like, God, no wonder I drank. It was like, God, this is awful. I don't want to feel this at all. Like, I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to come to the realization that I've been awake this whole time and I did not see that. How could I not see that? How could I not realize that? And I was 34, I'm 35 now. How could I have not realized that? But after sort of coming to terms with all of that and going to counseling, reading books, I watch a ridiculous amount of podcasts. Don't look at my YouTube history. I'm the most boring person ever, watching Andrew Huberman all day.
He's good stuff. He told me some of his podcasts. Yeah. Awesome.
But I've learned so much from reading and listening to audiobooks. I mean, I don't read all that often, but listening to audiobooks and podcasts and boring lectures from psychologists, and that's just what I did to try to learn. And it made me a better person, in that I knew who I was. I knew what had happened and how it affected me. I sort of grappled with the abuse, in that my abuser, my ex-husband, he grew up in a really abusive home, or if you want to call it a home, he didn't have really a home. Struggled with drugs, and he was in the criminal justice system, and he was abused and all this stuff. He was really just extremely troubled, didn't have a dad at home. His mom died, like all these things. His brothers beat him, and his sisters were a wreck. Like, it all just was, it made sense why he was the way he was. But it was a real clear difference in how his behavior switched from being sort of a trauma response, a fight or flight response, into like someone that wants to hurt somebody, which is it's something that it was hard to grapple with, that somebody that's willing to hurt somebody for their own gain, or willing to pretend or have empathy only to sort of be manipulative and get a way in, because that's why he targeted me, because I was the perfect sort of victim, I guess. I was weak. I didn't know who I was. I was naive, extremely naive. I was independent, but not really. Single mom, like that I was a target. And so I see that now, and I think of like my daughters, I have one that's a teenager, one that's going to be soon. And it scares me that they're going into this world where there's people like that. And so understanding those type of people was very important to me. And so I got really into psychology and stuff. And so and the more I got into that, the more I just got into improving myself overall. And that included my health. And after I quit drinking, I started working out. And that was super basic too. It was just, I started out on the treadmill, and I didn't know anything about working out. I was probably terrible. And thank God I was doing it at home, because someone still is probably like, what is she doing? She's totally doing it wrong.
Mhm.
But I don't have a personal trainer. I mean, so I'm just doing what I
Mhm.
can. But
Mhm.
like, I just would learn. I, went on Instagram, follow a bunch of personal trainers, and that's what I do. I mean, I'm just using the tools that I have, but I make it a point to do something new or better, improve something in my life, something small. It doesn't have to be anything big, every day. Just something. Like, what is something that you could do and you should do and you would do that could make your life a little bit better? I stole that from Jordan Peterson, by the way.
Mhm. And what is it that you do?
Well, I mean, in terms of like, do you want to know what I do in a day? I mean, I could tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess before, when I was working and drinking, I would get up at like 7, which is super late for me now. I would get up at
Mhm.
7 and get ready, and I'd stay up super late. We'd drink. It was just sad, honestly. I look back and I'm thinking, oh my God, I wish I could have, like, what are you doing? Come on,
Mhm. Mhm.
dump it out. But
Mhm.
I mean, I did eventually. But like before, and I wasn't working out, I watched a lot of TV and shows. Um,
Mhm.
but now I'm at a point where I wake up just usually just before 5 or right at 5. Um, and that's usually not with an alarm. It's just because of the sort of small steps I've taken to improve my health. And this is thanks to Andrew Huberman. I get morning sunlight on my retinas. So I wake up, go outside, or usually I go outside within the first hour or so of waking up, and when the sun's out. And that's supposed to help you wake up and your sleep. And it has over time, consistency, that's helped. But I I wake up, first thing I do, sun, and then I take a cold shower. And that was something I started in September. And mind you, I hate the cold. I hate cold water. Do not like winter. I don't know why I live here. We get snow and ice. But yeah, so
Mhm.
hate the cold. And I was like, well, this is supposed to help. Andrew Huberman recommends it, and I'm just going to try it. So I started 30 seconds, and now I can do easily 3 minutes. I usually do about 3 minutes, but it's not really about the time, as you might know that. But so cold shower, get ready for the day. I work out first thing, if first thing before work. And then after work, I hustle up, get dressed, go to work. Or before work, I hustle up, get dressed, go to work. And yeah, I mean, I'm currently working a few jobs, but I work for 2 different law firms, and then I work for the university. I work 2 different positions for the university, but I sign up for too much stuff. That's just me. But so that's kind of my day, and I have kids, and so they're in activities, and so I usually have to do homework or something at the dojo because my kids do karate. And so
Mhm.
usually parents will see me up there with my laptop. It's just life. I mean,
Mhm.
I have to do it where I am, and then it's nice to be. able to see my son do karate as well, and be able to
Mm-hmm.
do work too.
Yeah.
And then at night I do sauna. I just got some portable sauna on Amazon,
Mm.
and I usually try to get to bed before 11 and do it
Mhm.
all over again.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you answering that question. And before I get into my other questions, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to talk about what's happened in 35 years of your life that has been traumatic and challenging in 35 minutes. So I imagine there's a lot of emotions with the things that you talked about and the emotions that you're experiencing and the emotions that the listeners are experiencing as well that may relate to your story are all genuine human emotions that we're allowed to feel. So I want to say thank you for being raw and real and talking about things that are not easy to talk about. But you did mention how you're changing habits to be healthier than yesterday. And you mentioned before you were talking about your daily habits, like it's little things that you're changing to be healthier. And I think sometimes what we do is we just get so easily overwhelmed by the big picture. And it's easy to get overwhelmed by the big picture because we don't know how to compartmentalize. And there's so much uncertainty. Like I have no idea what's going to happen through the rest of this evening. I don't know if tomorrow's coming. I'd be hopeful for tomorrow. I hope that tomorrow comes because I've got big plans and big goals and people to help, but including myself. But there's so much uncertainty, and I think it's too easy to get overwhelmed. And I think if we can learn the art of compartmentalization and just change a few things, or we just condense everything into what are we doing right here in this present moment? Maybe that's how I'm thinking. Maybe that's how I'm acting. Like I'm not thinking two steps in front of me. I'm thinking right here, right now. And when I respond to something, I want to have the integrity at the end of the night when I'm laying in my head and trying to get ready to go to bed. I want to be able to recognize that I did live a values based life for that day. And I didn't say or do anything that I regretted. And yeah, I think a lot of the things that you were talking about, specifically with how you go about your day, for me, that is living a values based lifestyle. I got the treadmill behind me. That thing is caked in sweat from this morning because I made conscious decisions to get on that before I went to work. Because if I get on that before I interact with other people, I know I'm going to give myself the time that I need to increase patience because I am convinced that I'm going to have an opportunity later in the day where I'm going to have to practice some patience. And I get to practice that for X amount of time every day. So, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm hoping that people can relate to that as well. There's a few other things that you were talking about that I'd like to dive a little deeper in, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
You were mentioning that the hardest obstacle that you had to overcome was that of fear. If you want to take a moment, take a breath, think about like what steps did you take or what values did you lean into or how did you overcome fear?
I think I'll answer that in a couple parts. So fear to me wasn't just fear of being hurt. It was fear of actually facing who I was and what had happened and the decisions that I had made in life. And so it was looking back at all the choices that I made. That's how I overcame fear. And it wasn't, that sounds easy, but I mean, it really wasn't. There was a couple things that I did. There was I can't remember who it was. It might have been Vanessa Van Edwards. She has a book and she's on YouTube. But I think it was her that recommended writing down write a list of things. What do people say I'm good at? And what do people say I'm bad at? And I just wrote the things that people said I'm bad at, and at that time I was emotional roller coaster probably, because I would get upset over stupid things. I just did. And I would get wrapped up in things that truly don't matter. Like, they really don't matter. And so it was coming to the realization, like, okay, I'm not good at these things, and I'm good at these things. These people say, the people say I'm good at these things. And then on the next page I would write, what do I think I'm good at? And what do I think I'm bad at? And the things that I was bad at, I was like, well, I mean, honestly, I could probably fix that. And what are the things that I can do to fix that? And so I would just make a list of the things. Okay, what do I have to do to fix that? If then when I made that list, I didn't know what I was doing when it came to my diet and eating. I was working out. Yeah, that was great. And I was losing weight. Oh, that's wonderful. And I, looking better and all this stuff. But still, I didn't know what I was doing when it came to diet. That was on the things that I know I'm not good at. I'm not good at, I eat a bunch of, Flamin' Hot Cheetos and, candy every once in a while. That was the things that I was not good at. And those are just the sacrifices that you have to make to be healthier. It was little things like that, little corrections. But I think when it came to the fear, as in, like, when I was terrified, scared for my safety and my kids' safety, to me currently he's still a threat. Absolutely. I don't consider him, if he's anywhere near me or a safe. I don't think that's safe. But I also realize now that I am capable of defending myself, because then I was that person. I was so overwhelmed with fear that I would run or freeze. And a lot of times it was freeze, because I was that terrified, or that I didn't know how to respond. And so my counselor had me going through EMDR. And so that's essentially, you have like two things in your hands. Yeah, you know what it is. So you have the two sensors in your hands, and you're essentially reliving that memory step by step, and the counselor's with you the whole time. And that was extremely overwhelming to do that. It was a couple days after that I was still sort of recovering from that. It was so mentally exhausting having to relive those experiences. But after those couple days, the same things that used to trigger me before didn't anymore. And I wasn't terrified to go out in public. I wasn't circling parking lots, because that's what I would do too. I would go through every single aisle in parking lots to ensure that his car or one of his vehicles wasn't there, because I was that scared, and it was controlling so much of my life. I felt so disabled by that, and realizing how bad that affected me, yeah, I was able to overcome a lot of that irrational fear. But that's sort of how I overcame that. And then now when I work out, there's moments when I absolutely want to quit. Oh, 100%. I there's moments where days I don't want to do it. Of course I don't want to do it. I'd rather do something else than be extremely sore. I have a knee injury, but I still keep working out. But like I just push through, and the moments that I'm feeling like I want to quit, I think I can do this. Who is saying I can't do this? Nobody now, except for me potentially. And so I just push through. And a lot of I almost feel anger when I go through these sort of like mental challenges. I'm like, wow, I don't want to do it. Um, but I am super pissed off still that about everything that's happened, that people like that get away with those things, that there's a lot of injustice in the world and a lot of unfairness, and there's not a lot I can do, kind of, but that's why I'm in law school. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I try to I'm doing this. That's why I try to reach out to other people, and I try to be, or I am, I don't try, I am available for people that want to talk or are going through situations, because I care, I genuinely care, and I don't want to see anyone going through anything remotely like I went through, or the other people that I know that gone through, you know, horrible things. And I guess one thing that really bothers me is people's judgment, and when someone instantly dismisses another person based on whatever, however they're acting, without even understanding perhaps their perspective. I mean, I'm sure you've been misjudged before, but I certainly have, or made out to be someone that I'm absolutely not. You know, it's awful to be painted in a picture that you're not. And I guess if you've ever experienced it, it it pisses you off. It's like, that's not who I am. This is who I am. And I wish people understood that, but I don't judge someone based on what their actions were or are currently. Like, everyone has a reason, everyone has a life experience that has changed, that has put them in the position that they are now. And it's important to understand that. And I feel like it's part of being a human being that we are here for each other. I mean, I don't understand why everyone's so adversarial, but like, we should be getting along and caring about each other. I mean, we are the ones that are here, that are living amongst each other. Shouldn't we care? You know? Sorry, going off on a tangent there, or a rant.
You're not allowed to say sorry anymore.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna put it on my
You're
people say
good.
I'm bad at.
You're fine. I appreciate everything that you said. Yeah, thank you for talking about how you overcame your challenge with fear. And for me, I love to say, match your fear with courage. That's what I tell myself all the time, because I recognize I've done a lot of hard things in my life, but I have not reached this level of confidence that I thought that I would need to move through and deal with all the adversity that I would be up against. So I just got to this point in my journey over the last few years where I was like, okay, well, I don't have this confidence to deal with this challenge right now. But what if I recognize the fear that I have and I just match it with courage? So, courage, not necessarily over fear. I'm just matching the fear that I have, acknowledging it, recognizing my human nature, and I'm just going to match that with courage. And usually I'm able to move through that adversity and deal with the obstacle through the opportunity that I'm given to move forward in a healthy way.
Can
So
I
yeah,
say
I hope
something
that
controversial?
mm-hmm.
I don't think confidence is a real thing. I just don't
Mm,
think, I think it's sort of a label that we put on our own sort of a state of feeling.
mm,
I just don't, confidence, I feel like whenever anyone talks about confidence, they're talking about their own confidence, right?
mm.
Perhaps, or someone else's confidence, but it's really just their perspective, and we should really sort of consider how you feel in that moment. But um, I like what you said when you're turning that into motivation, essentially. But yeah, anyway, sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Melissa, you just said
I said sorry.
sorry.
I,
You
I
did.
said
That's
it
okay.
again.
You did.
Is it
That's
good?
okay. Well, I appreciate that. I agree with what you're talking about. I think that the confidence that I was looking for was really an inflated ego. And then I recognized the hard things that I said yes to and I accomplished, and I did not have that inflated ego like I thought I would. And I think it's because in the pursuit of progress, I murdered my ego countless times through humility. And that is what brought me to the point of understanding where I just disregarded confidence entirely and really just leaning into courage. Because what am I trying to be confident in? I'm already doing the
Right.
things I know I can do. So I don't need to be confident in it because I'm already doing it because of the courage that I have, not because of my inflated ego. So, yeah, I appreciate what you said. And you brought up the word motivation, because when you asked to bring up something controversial, it's like, yeah, well, I'll level with you too. And like, I think that the word motivation should be replaced with inspiration. That's what I think. I think the word motivation should be erased from everyone's vocabulary and not be a value that anybody. I wouldn't even call motivation a value. I don't know what I would call it, because I think about what I'm pursuing, how I'm pursuing a values based lifestyle, and it's not rooted in motivation. Motivation to me would be something fleeting and momentary. But if I can replace motivation with what you were talking about earlier, which is discipline, what's the difference? What's the impact? If I can replace motivation with discipline, the result could be even better and it's longer lasting. So that's another thing that I've been thinking about for a long time. I think that some people, the reason why I'm so passionate about trying to erase the word motivation is because I think people are waiting for it. And if you're
Oh,
waiting for
yeah.
it, it may not come. And I can't remember the last time I was really motivated to do anything. But because I've conditioned myself through repetition to lean into discipline with whatever the obstacle is, then the result can be a healthy result. Because that's really what I'm trying to pursue in life is holistic strength. So I'm leveraging physical capabilities to grow mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And when life gets hard, I'm not waiting for motivation because it's not coming, but I'm leaning on my values and being disciplined and laying my head at night, reflecting on what I said and what I did. And for the most part, I'm grateful for the courage that I leaned into to be the person I know I can be. And I knew that I didn't need motivation to be a healthy person, but I needed discipline. Discipline to be grounded in my convictions and in my foundational values. That's why I post foundational values, because when life gets tough and it gets rocky, like, I'm not leaning on motivation. I'm not hanging on to this branch of motivation because it's probably going to snap. But if I
Right.
lean into foundational values that are concrete through discipline, then I feel grounded and I feel like I have a solid foundation to be a healthy person.
Right. I
Not
think it
sorry,
did
but
you
end rant.
when you were sort of developing your values, were you writing this stuff down, or how did you do this? Like, what was your sort of process?
A lot of thinking, and I use social media as an outlet for writing, and I like to be as simple as possible. I love to just do a lot of deep thinking and write down just like one liners. I just do as much thinking as I can. I'm like, what is something that I'm learning? What am I learning about myself through this pursuit of progress in this moment? And then I was like, I think me thinking about my foundational values really stemmed just a few months ago, because for those of you just tuning in, I'm active duty Air Force, been in 12 years, teach survival for the Air Force. And I got an invitation to be a resilience trainer instructor for the Air Force.
Cool.
So I jumped on that, and it was a 3-day course. Day one, they're talking about values and leveraging values to accomplish goals. And it was in that moment, this was in February, where I was like, wait, I don't think I'm living the way that I'm living because I'm trying to achieve a goal. I'm actually living the way I'm living because I'm just pursuing a values-based lifestyle. They may sound kind of contradicting, but what I learned is I prioritize values, and I use physical fitness as a way to grow holistically. And that's why I run every day. And there's a lot of things I don't post on social media because I just, I keep it to me. I know what I push. I know what I know how I move, and I know how I'm getting stronger, but I don't post all those things. But I have goals, and I meet those goals every day. But I also know that if I didn't volunteer for that momentary discomfort, I'm not going to be as healthy as I know I can be. And it just was a really cool light bulb moment where I realized, like, I don't have to achieve a specific goal to be validated. If I can just live a values-based lifestyle, then I am healthier than yesterday. And I could be the man that I know I can be. And it's been really awesome. I set a goal in the beginning of the year to log X amount of miles every day, and I've been doing that. There's a few days that I have not,
Nice.
but it's so cool for me to, if we bring it back to Huberman, what he taught me was this critical part in your brain that is called the anterior midcingulate cortex. Essentially, what that means is your will to survive is expanding.
Right.
When we volunteer for something that's uncomfortable, we survive. We convince ourselves through action that we accomplished something that we didn't think we could. Now our will to survive is expanding. So, Melissa, when you take a 3-minute freezing cold shower when you know you don't want to, your anterior midcingulate cortex is expanding. And I get that satisfaction on a daily basis, as opposed to training really, really hard for a few months to run one race. Because I reflect on the goal that I set 7 months ago, going into month 8, And I've been doing it since the beginning of the year, and I didn't think I could. There was a time where I was like, oh, it'd be cool to run 6 miles one day. And now I do it every day because I can. But yeah, all that to say is that's just one way to expand my own internal will to survive, and just leveraging values of discipline and consistency and integrity, courage, adaptability, resilience, compassion, because you were talking about that as well. Like, compassion is phase one's number one and first foundational value. It's the recognition of suffering of others. And that's why the events that we're putting on is community based. And when we run these races, we're not just doing it to try to get first. There is no first, there's no last in phase one events. But it's an opportunity to grow with one another, doing something challenging for a long time, and yeah, encouraging one another along the way and recognizing the suffering of others and being compassionate. So I hope I answered your question. I feel like you were going to say something. What do you got?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have anything for that, but thank you. That was good.
I appreciate that. Let's see. There was another topic that I wanted to lean into, and we could use this as a transition into the last piece of this conversation that we get to have, which is essentially words of encouragement. Because Melissa and I, we talked about this before, and we recognize that all of us in some way are hurting. We all have a past, we all have hurt, and we get to move forward. And what we want to do is encourage you. So one question that I have for you is, rewind to the beginning of the conversation. You were talking about being at a place in your life where you would look at the mirror and you just had no idea who you were. So if you could take a moment and think about your journey from looking in the mirror and not knowing who you were looking at to where you're at now, and looking at the mirror and seeing the Melissa that you know you always were. What words of encouragement do you have for the hurting human who's listening that can look in the mirror and start to remember who they've always been?
I think one of the best pieces of advice that I have ever heard was treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. That really sort of changed my perspective on myself, because I had this super biased view of myself, and I'm like, I don't deserve that, you know? But I did. I actually did deserve, I deserved a life that was happy and free of violence. That's obviously a given, but I deserved so much more. And the best part is I can just give it to myself, because it was sort of a point in my life where I'm just like, well, it's just me. I mean, the only person that's going to be here for me is me. Truly. And it's my life. And I wasn't about to let someone else come into my life and take control ever again. So I wanted control over my life for the first time. And really, you're defined by your own limits. I know that's a quote from somebody else, but you really are. Whatever you say you can and cannot do is completely up to you. I mean, I would have not imagined myself here on a podcast. I wouldn't imagine myself in law school with a bunch of professionals, having lunch with judges. Like, who is this? But this is who I am. And the person before was sort of someone that didn't know who she was or what she wanted or what I needed. I didn't know any of that. And I feel it is super important, the most important, to know those things about yourself. Because if you don't even know who you are, how can you even think about what's important to you or what are your values? What's important to you if you don't even know who you are? So, looking back then, when I was looking in the mirror in my bathroom, crying, sort of angry with myself on like, what are you doing? Figure this out. Like, you have to do something. You have to do something for you. You have to do something for your kids. But I was too weak. I was too weak. I didn't know what to do. It wasn't until I got help and help from a counselor and help from myself. And I still have to. It's not like I'm perfect by any means. I still struggle. There's days that are I sort of kind of revert. It's kind of not cool. Like some days there's things that are just overwhelming and I almost revert back to like a default, like just a negative self. It's not good. And I have to be really aware of that and accountable to myself. I have to be. Because if you're not, yeah, you shouldn't be relying on someone else to make sure that you're accountable and make sure you're being a good person and you're doing the right things. It really is up to you. But that's also the beauty in it. You have the ability to change the trajectory of your life. I mean, I didn't grow up to be an attorney. Like I just didn't. That was not what happened in my family. It just wasn't. And I'm very grateful for who I am now. And that's also another aspect of it, is ensuring that you really value life, because you'll have one shot, by the way. Well, you have one chance at living. You don't get a second chance. You don't get a second try. Isn't that scary? That should be scary enough to get you to change, but a lot of it's not. And it wasn't for me. So I mean, I understand, but just having a sort of either mental practice or you can write it down of things that you're grateful for. And it doesn't have to be anything specific. I'm grateful to be alive. If you're feeling really negative, I'm grateful for this pen. Just you could literally be grateful for anything. But as long as you're saying, okay, really, what is good about my life right now? And I guarantee you there's many, many good things going on in your life, and probably a lot of things that you could improve yourself that would not take a lot of effort. You don't have to take cold showers. You don't have to work out every day. You don't have to eat healthy. You don't have to do any of that. But you have to want something for yourself and something for the future. Because really our kids are looking at us. They're looking at us no matter what you think or feel. Like, they're watching us, and if you are not going to be someone that you want your own children to be, then you should probably try to change something. But as far as words of encouragement, I feel like you are defined by your own limits, and whatever you want to do for you, you absolutely can. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to win the lottery, and you're not going to accomplish all your wildest dreams. If you look at anybody that's successful in life, they had to work really hard to get there. And it's not easy. but it is just little steps, little things that I can do to improve. And you don't have to look at it as in, I need to get motivated. And I agree with you. You don't have to get motivated to do anything. You could just do little simple things in your daily life. Instead of having that Snickers bar, have a apple instead. Little things like that, not just food, but just anything. If you are, going to the grocery store, park furthest away, walk a little bit, make it a little bit challenging. You can do that. Like there's just little things that you can do to improve your life physically, mentally, emotionally, that you just need to define. You just need to write down or think about and take action and be consistent.
Mm-hmm. I love to say to take productive action.
Right.
And like you said, motivation is no prerequisite. My words of encouragement to those that are still tuned. Oh, it says trying to reconnect. Stand by. Ooh, we cross our fingers. We got it. We're so good. All right. Before this dies on us, I always think about words of encouragement for the hurting human, and the things that I get to share are things that I learn for myself every day through the pursuit of progress, taking productive action, and really just living a values-based lifestyle. So if you don't know your values, do some homework. That's my encouragement and recommendation to you is do a little Google search, look up a list of values and look at the ones that speak to you and write them down and know them by definition and ask yourself, like, why is this foundational to me? Or if you see something that you want to incorporate into your lifestyle, then just do that. I'm a firm believer that we know what we can do, but we are limited by what we say we can't do. And it's in line with the things that you're talking about earlier, Melissa. If we say we can't do something, we're right. And I really don't want anyone to be a victim to themselves when it comes to limiting yourself based off what you say you can't do. Cool. All right, I got a curveball for you. You ready for this one?
Yeah, go.
I love to ask this question at the end of every conversation. But if you think about phase one, I want you to take a moment and think about, what does phase one mean to you?
Phase
No wrong
one
answer.
means, oh, sorry, what?
Oh, I said no wrong answer.
Okay. Phase one to me means the phase one in your sort of journey into becoming who you can be. I think the phase one is that realization, like, this is who I am now. This is what I got to change. This is a starting point, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that's all right.
It's perfect. No, that's it. That's how it started for me. In a moment
Oh, really?
of extreme discomfort and not wanting to do what I was doing. And in that moment, I realized that motivation is no prerequisite. And just told myself, this is your phase one. You get to do
That's
this,
awesome.
and you know you can. So I love to hear other people's perspective because it speaks to people in different ways. Melissa, thank you for your time. Thanks for sharing life with me. And I hope that those of you tuning in, I hope that you were able to resonate or learn from our friend. But if people want to stay connected with you, how can they connect with you?
Well, they can follow me on Instagram. I mean, for professionals, I have LinkedIn or Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
But I am in the works of also developing my own podcast that's still really early stages. We've already kind of talked about that, but I just want people to know that I I am there for them, even if I'm, obviously not always accessible, but I understand what it's like to be in a position where you feel lost and alone and isolated and hurt and not know how do you get out of that. It's overwhelming, it's too much. And so I don't judge people based on what they have gone through, because I've been misjudged, and it's hard to live like that, um, to have people feel a certain way about you that's wrong. It's hard. So I just want to be a source for people, either to help them in their legal matters or whatever, or get them some help or in the right direction, whichever whatever they need.
Cool. I appreciate you very much. Thanks for spending some life with me. And yeah, last plug for me. I understand and am intimately familiar with hopelessness, but I also know hope. And I know the journey from hopelessness to hope. So if any of you tuning in have some more questions, feel free to reach out to Melissa or I. We'd be happy to connect with you and encourage you on your own journey. But that's all we have. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Peace, love, keep it real.